New York Mayor Mike Bloomberg made an interesting case for the NYPD's stop and frisk policy this past week. Race schmace, it turns out you black and brown people, you don't get frisked enough.
One newspaper and one news service, they just keep saying, oh, it's a disproportionate percentage of a particular ethnic group. That may be, but it's not a disproportionate percentage of those who witnesses and victims describe as committing the murder. In that case, incidentally, I think we disproportionately stop whites too much and minorities too little.
Somebody really doesn't want to be president. Okay, let's unpack that statement a bit. He says that may be. Okay, he said that. So black and brown people are disproportionately stopped, but it isn't disproportionate enough. For more, let's turn to our esteemed panel. You've already met the great Dawn Porter, whose award-winning documentary Gideon's Army premieres at 9 p.m. Eastern tonight on HBO. Janine Brito is an old friend of the show, comedian, writer, and on-air correspondent for the FX series Totally Biased with W. Kamau Bell. And the one and only Tina Dupuy is a syndicated columnist and the editor-in-chief of thecontributor.com. I'd like to talk with you all fine ladies about stop and frisk, which we enjoy here in New York. Well, actually, I'm white, so I don't get the pleasure. But here's the thing. I've never met a black weed dealer. But white kids on bikes are all over the city carrying their product to a happy populace and never getting stop and frisk. So what is Mayor Bloomberg talking about? Dawn?
You know, it's hard to understand what he's talking about. I mean, this convoluted defense of this policy where, you know, we know that 9 out of 10 people who were stopped are not charged with anything. So how he defends this policy, you know, the last I checked, I was a New Yorker too. So it'd be nice to think that I could walk down the street, you know, without being frisked.
Not to be cynical, but is it just that crime is down in some areas and Bloomberg thinks that he can sell this as working and he knows that black and brown people are never going to vote for him and he's never going to run anyway, so let's make the white people think my policies work? Janine, am I just talking rapidly?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's insane. Think Progress broke down the NYPD's numbers and found that 106% of black men were being stopped and frisked. That means more black men were being stopped and frisked than exist in New York City.
That means they have to import black men from elsewhere.
Let's bring them in
from New Jersey.
Frisk them and send them back. Yeah.
106% of black men? And wow, okay, so greater, I guess, it's a great tourist spot.
Well, there's the double ups. So.
Oh, okay, well, there you go. Tina, is Bloomberg afraid of just being popular?
Look, he's basically admitting that he's profiling people and that this is successful because he's going after the people who look like people who commit crimes, which is by definition profiling. I mean, you know, it's also what, and the data that he hasn't, you know, because he talks about numbers a lot, the data that he's not getting into is the fact that if you have community policing is much more effective than creating animosity within these communities, because then people don't report crimes, they're not witnesses to crimes. Crimes continue to happen in those neighborhoods because there's no police force that they trust.
And it makes life tougher for cops.
Yes.
Now, let's take this radical position that maybe crime is not the problem, but a symptom of the problem, and the problem is poverty, the problem is economic disenfranchisement, the problem is a lack of jobs in crummy neighborhoods. Is attacking the problem instead of the source of the problem the right way to fix it, or how could Mayor Bloomberg try to fix it? Dawn?
You know, I'm so glad you asked that because I'm just so disappointed in the mayor for defending the policy rather than talking about what we could be doing to help citizens and also to keep people safe. So
are you implying a white billionaire's out of touch?
You know, maybe, you know, call me crazy. But I think we had a real opportunity with the city with falling crime rates. New York City actually has one of the most resilient economies in the Northeast, and yet we're, you know, leading the nation in profiling. We're setting a really bad example. And I've heard recently that Chicago is thinking, with all of its gang-related violence, of starting a profiling system. So, you know, it's like we're #1, and Chicago's about to follow suit, which I don't think is the legacy we want to have.
Janine, is this helping?
No, and he's basically defending it by saying, look, these are what the people who commit crimes look like. And I'm sorry, but I would like a police officer to have a little bit of a more nuanced, in-depth tactic than white women who grip their purses every time they see a black guy.
Yeah.
Like, you're a professional. You should be looking for
There are those who would say the white criminals on Wall Street hurt us a lot more than the petty thieves in the outer boroughs. But I do want to move on quickly to the Trayvon Martin case. Robert Zimmerman is not using the stand your ground defense, so legislation is not going to change, but it's become a midsummer mini-series for daytime 24-hour news channels. And we asked viewers today, what do you think of the mainstream media's coverage of the George Zimmerman trial so far. Susie Pearlstein says, quote, terrible, way too much time spent on talking heads instead of just letting us watch. We have brains, so they need to be quiet. Very insightful, Susie. Let's see what the panel thinks. Do we care that because this trial will make a difference in race relations, or is this just compelling because we know the characters and it's fun TV? I'll go to you first, Tina.
I think that trials are always, it's a public trial. Now we have the internet and we have television, and we are, so it's even more public than it ever has been before. And, and we've always enjoyed trials, and this is, it's like, I see no difference between this trial and other notable homicide cases.
Janine, unarmed black teens are killed every day and shot and killed every day, and they don't get their trials on TV. Is the case getting this much coverage because the public demands it, or is it just a great summer miniseries?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you are going to have the talking heads that are going to Real Housewife this case and just make it really sensational and like reality TV. But I think on the flip side, there are members of the public who are concerned because of the details of this case are so worrisome. The dispatcher telling Zimmerman to remain in his vehicle is kind of creepy. Yeah.
Well, Dawn, you shot a lot of footage for your film in courtrooms. Really quick before we go, good idea to have cameras in every courtroom, yes or no?
I think it's a great idea to have cameras in the court. I mean, I think the public is interested for a reason, which is that this is our system of democracy we're talking about. So I kind of agree with the first clip you read, which is let the people see and judge for themselves.
That's why you should all write into our show. I want to thank my wonderful panel, Dawn Porter, Janine Brito, and Tina Dupuy. Don't go away. Republicans are now criticizing Hillary Clinton's age. GOP hypocrisy never gets old. Up next.